So it's a great time to be reading about membership, not only because it's August and it's membership month and new club development month, but because we just got new data from Rotary International. They just finished doing the analysis on the numbers for last year that ended on July 31st. And we actually got some good news. Believe it or not, for the first time in many years, we actually stopped the attrition. So we slowed down the loss of our membership. So we're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. But before we get started, I just want to tell you that the best way to grow Rotary, and we know this from many years of trying, is not a silver bullet doing one thing, a magical formula. It's really a holistic approach. And really, there's only three ways to grow Rotary. First, we need to attract members to our existing clubs, going out in the community, reaching those potential people of action, and bringing them into the clubs we currently have. The second thing we need to do is, like Demetra said, we actually need to engage our members. We bring in 150,000 people into Rotary every year. That's great. And if we kept all those over the last 10 years, we'd have 1.5 million more Rotarians. But the reality is, even though we bring in 150,000, we usually lose about 160,000. And it's a little bit concerning about when we lose them, but we'll talk about that later. The third area to grow Rotary, the third process, is to form new clubs. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But what we want to focus on tonight is actually something that wraps around all of that, and that's the club culture or the club experience. Because of all the things we do in Rotary, the single most important factor to keep our members engaged and retained is the club experience. So, what is the club culture or the club experience? It's basically what we do in a club. It's how we operate. It's how we get along with others. It's our policies. It's our practice. And if you have a good club and you have a good club culture, you can feel it. You know it. Why? Because the members are engaged. They're coming to the meetings. You're raising money for both the Rotary Foundation and your local club. You're having great socials. You're having good service projects. But we know it's also a positive experience when our members have confidence in our club leaders. And this is especially true with Rotaract clubs. And you know how it is. If you have a good president in your club, those things go well. You really grow. You do all those things. Members are enjoying the meetings. And to enjoy the meetings, we really have to respect our members. If we say we start at a breakfast meeting at 7:30 and we end at 8:30, make sure you start at 7:30 and make sure you end at 8:30. If you have a speaker, make sure that those participants also get their fair share to speak. Don't do club business for 50 minutes and just give the speaker 10 minutes to speak. And we also need to make sure when we look at why people join Rotary, they join for different reasons. But for Rotary members, the number one reason why people join is for friendship. In Rotaract, it's leadership development. So we need to make sure either if we're in a Rotary club or a Rotaract club, we provide both, but we need to provide time where people can actually share themselves with others so that we can have that friendship and form those bonds. And that could be before the club meeting or after the club meeting. It doesn't necessarily have to be in the club meeting, but we really have to do that to help the club culture. So, Farron, let's have that first poll question. Where can you get successful ideas to create a successful club culture? 1, from the Rotary Learning Center and official resources. 2, by networking with other clubs and districts. 3, through using Rotary membership webinars and events. 4, from member feedback and club surveys. And or by exploring the best practices and success stories, or all of the above. Okay, it looks like 21% said Learning Center, 21% said networking with other clubs and districts, 21% through webinars and events, surveys 21%, exploring best practices 17%, and everyone says 100% all the above. And that must be the right answer. We always learn from each other with these things. Okay, So we're going to close that and we're going to move on with our presentation. So we know that the club experience is important. We know we need to grow Rotary by those three ways: attracting members, retaining members, starting new clubs. So where are the real opportunities for growth? Well, first of all, we should ask the question, why do we want to grow Rotary? We keep talking about this is our number one, Demetra said, and she's correct, our number one internal priority. And our number one programmatic external priority is eradicating polio. But membership's our number one priority. Why? Because people join Rotary to do something. No one joins a Rotary Club to do nothing. And we join because we want to do service. We want to make the world a better place. So if we get more members, we can do more things. We have more hands and hearts for service. So that's why we want to do it. The action plan, like Demetra says, gives us ways to do that. But where are the real opportunities? To boil it down, there's three major opportunities. Remember, we talked about we get in 150,000, but we lose 160,000. It's interesting to look at when we lose those individuals. We lose 10% of those members within the first year of them joining. And within the first 3 years of them joining, we actually lose just over 50%. After 3 years, they're like all of us. They're here on a weeknight listening to a membership webinar because we're all passionate about trying to grow more. So we also forming new clubs. So if you think about it, people leaving, that's retention. And Demetra said that was our most important thing. And it's interesting because when we do the annual survey of leaders, which is club presidents and district governors, and we list the action plan priorities, the four things that Demetra showed in the beginning, we ask them to say which is the most important to them. And they all say enhancing participant engagement, 78%. If we did that, we would keep those 10% that leave in the first year. We'd keep that 50% that leave in the first 3 years. And it's easy to do. In your club, my wife's club, when someone joins, they assign every member to a committee. So they get engaged right away. They have people to interact with. They have people to sit with it whenever the meeting times are. And then the last opportunity is forming new clubs. So we're going to talk a little bit about that coming up here. But the first thing we need to think about is club flexibility and club development. So when we think about starting new clubs, those principles can be used to actually innovate at your current club. So all the things we're going to learn tonight, you can use even if you're not starting a new club. So there are all different kinds of club formats, models, types. We have Rotary clubs, Rotaract clubs, and satellite clubs. Those are the club types. But we also have different formats. You can meet in person, you can meet online, or you can meet as a hybrid, which is meeting in person, but there's an electronic format that allows interaction with people who are dialing in on the web. And of course, we have club models. And these aren't our only club models. If there's a club that you're thinking of, don't be constrained by this. We can help you start. Demetrius' team can help you start a new club, even if it's not on this list. But we have traditional clubs. And don't get me wrong, our traditional clubs, they're the backbone of Rotary. I'm in a traditional club. I would never leave it because my friends are there. We're trying to reach out to other people of action within the community and bring them in. And sometimes we can't bring them in because they don't fit in with our traditional meeting. For example, I meet on Tuesday mornings at 7:30 at a country club. Well, if someone has to take their children or want to take their children to the school bus in the morning at 7:30, they can't come to our club. If someone works for a publicly traded corporation and needs to be at their desk during trading hours, they wouldn't be able to come to my club. So why not start a club that meets at night or meets on the weekends? So we have traditional clubs, we have passport clubs, cause-based clubs, interest-based clubs. I feel like Bubba on Forrest Gump. We have this kind of shrimp and that kind of shrimp. But we have corporate clubs, we have alumni-based clubs, we have service-based clubs. And these are all on Rotary's website. If you go to the membership section of My Rotary, you can click on all the light blue and they will teach you how to form those clubs and what those clubs are about. And of course, if you need help from any person on our team, we'll be happy to come in and do a webinar on one, of just club types and club models or on all of them. Whatever you want, we'll be there to help. And of course, there's various kinds of clubs, such as international clubs, expats meeting in, let's say there's American expats meeting in China. They could have a club. And districts often have a district-wide e-club, and that's really smart for districts to have because if you think about it, when someone's asked to join a club, they learn about that particular club, but they're not necessarily told about other clubs in the area, and they might not be told about fellowships and action groups and all the other fun things you can do in Rotary. So if you have that district-wide e-club and someone has a culture that doesn't work for them, you can grab them up in that district-wide e-club. So that's something to consider. Now, this is a very innovative idea that's actually happening here in North America, and it's the new club creation team, and they have an app, and it works on your phone. So when you're starting a club, it'll prompt you to do different things. And when you add in members and things like that, it's actually filling out the application. So when you're done working through this app, you can click a button, it goes to CDS, our club and district support, and then you can give them your credit card number or you can send it a check and the club is formed. So you're going to be hearing a lot about this. Patrick Logano and Chris Jones are going to the institutes in North America sharing this. And this is not just an individual effort. They actually has been brought in and approved by the North American directors, and staff has contributed resources, both people and dollars, to this. So they're just about to launch generation two of this. So if you have any questions, reach out to any of us and we could get you hooked up with that app. But now it's time for poll question number 2. Okay, why do we start the Rotary year with Membership Month? First option, to emphasize growth and set the tone for the year ahead, to strengthen club engagement and member retention early on, to align recruitment efforts with strategic planning, to inspire new ideas and energize club culture, and to highlight the global impact of expanding Rotary's reach, or all the above. And the numbers are coming in. I don't want to influence the outcome, but I think you guys are going to get it right. And really, there is no wrong answer when we're talking about these things. But it turns out that it's all of them. We have about 20% between all of them, and 35 out of 37 who participated in the poll, so 95% said all the above. And yes, I think that's all of those answers are correct. So we will actually move on with our presentation here. Connecting with prospective and new members. So when we talk about attracting new members, what we're talking about is trying to connect with people who aren't already in the club and bringing them in. And we have to be intentional about it. I loved how Demetrius talked about the intentionality of membership. And it doesn't really matter how you do it, as long as you have a system and you follow it. When I was president of my club, um, I really cared about membership because I really knew in my heart of hearts that if we got more members, everything would get better. We'd raise more money for the Rotary Foundation. We'd do more international local service projects. We'd have more smiling faces at the meetings, so we'll have more happy people, better socials, all those things. Well, during my year as president, together we brought in 31 members. Um, and so how did we do that? Well, the first thing is in our board of directors meetings for our club, you know how those board of directors meetings are. You usually review the minutes, you review the financials, you talk about the next social that's coming up or the next service project, but we never talked about membership. So when I was president, I put that first on our agenda. And we talked about prospective members and how we can bring them in. And we don't need to have just one person be the membership team. We actually need a membership team because there's different individuals. There might be a retired individual who's a female, let's say. And if we are targeting another recently retired female, it would be good to pair them up because you as club president can't do everything yourself. So I wanted to come up with a system of how we can do this. And again, no system's perfect, but it's good to have a system. So what we did is we took the English alphabet A through Z, and we came up with categories under each one. So A, we had architects and we had accountants. B, we had bankers. And so our goal was, okay, do we have a banker in the club? Do we have an accountant? Do we have an architect? And if we didn't, we'd ask our club members, do any of you have a family member or a friend who's an architect? that kind of thing. So we went through the alphabet. Like for L, for example, we had a librarian and we had a landscaper. And yes, we did bring in a landscaper and a librarian. They were both great members. We never did get a zookeeper. That was what Z was, but we did grow by 31 members. So whatever your method, be intentional about it and try to move it forward. Now we talk about how do people feel like they belong? That is so important. We need our people to feel like they belong because if they feel like they don't belong, they're going to walk. They're just going to go leave Rotary. No one really leaves Rotary International. They leave a Rotary Club. So we really have to have comfort and care of our members. And we really have to care about our community. Now, I put curiosity down here because, I'm sure we've all been to clubs where you go in and there's cliques around, where there's a lot of inside jokes. And when you go there, you're like, well, I don't think I could ever fit in here. And if I could fit in here, it's going to take me 5 years to fit in. And do I really want to go to that much effort to learn all those inside jokes? And you don't feel like you're a part of something if the person in front of the room is just talking about themselves and they're not talking about other people and their new members. So curiosity is us asking potential members, what are you interested in? I know there's always the people who say, what's your elevator pitch? And when I get asked that question, I really don't have an elevator pitch because when I ask members to join, it's usually because they know me and they know something about me. And they'll ask questions such as, okay, you have a young lady, high school student from South Korea living with you. How did that happen? Well, that happened because of Rotary. Well, you're going to Honduras in September. Why are you going to build wells? Well, I want to do that. How do you do that? Well, you join Rotary. So that curiosity is the best way to go. We are up to poll question number 3. How do we retain our new Rotary members? Do we assign mentors to guide them and support them? Do we involve them in meaningful service projects early? Do we encourage participation in club meetings and discussions? Do we offer orientation and ongoing Rotary education? Do we celebrate their contributions and milestones? Or is the answer all the above? Well, the answers are rolling in, and it looks like we have a high 90% of all the above. And all those are good things to do. Whatever works for your club, whatever works for you as an individual, we should think about all these. Maybe take a club survey and ask them what they want to do. Do we want to assign people to either a class when we get a few people together? Do we want to assign them to a committee when they join? Is there a certain opening in your club that you think this person would be good to? And does that fit with what that person wants? So all good things to think about. And I especially like the new member orientation because remember, it doesn't matter if you bring in 31 individuals if you don't keep them. So that new member orientation gives the members a realistic expectation what to expect. How much are dues? When do we have to pay them? How much time does it really take to be a Rotarian? So those are all things that can be answered in new member orientation. And it's also a good time to tell people about the other clubs in the district if they think this isn't a fit for them, or about the E club that the district has. So, what is Rotary going to be doing for you, Rotary International? Well, they have a few things going on, and they're good things. One is the Membership Leads Redesign Program. Right now, we have a Membership Leads program where if someone is interested in joining Rotary, they can go to My Rotary, they can type in, I'm Tom Gump, I'd like to join Rotary. Well, what happens with those requests right now is they actually go to Rotary International. Rotary International sends them to the district, and the district is supposed to get them down to the club that fits best for that individual. But what happens is we have about 100,000 leads, about 66%, that are stuck at the district level and they never actually get to the members. It could be that the district doesn't have the right person in that position. It could be that person got busy. Sometimes it changes from year to year when you have different people get in that position. So it just wasn't working. And the Rotary International did 4 districts and tried to do pilots and how to try to make it better. And what was decided was we have to redo the system. And we have to do the system instead of having the leads come in up top, somehow they have to go start at the bottom. So we partnered up with Salesforce, a company in San Francisco, It's best in class technology. And what it's going to do is it's actually when leads come in, they're actually going to answer questions about what size they like, where they're going to be located, that kind of thing. And the technology is actually going to direct it to clubs in the district. If those clubs don't answer within 3 weeks, then it's going to go to the district. And if it's not answered timely by the district, then it goes to RI. So it basically takes the whole leads program and turns it on its head. And we really think that's going to work. So we don't have a time as to when that'll be done, but they're working on it right now. So hopefully soon. So why do we need this? Well, 30,000 leads per year. And this isn't just low hanging fruit. This is fruit on the ground. We could take these. These are people saying, I want to join Rotary. So we need to take them seriously. And the leads, most of them are good leads. 61% are under 40 and 35% are female. So the leads coming in are actually better than we have currently in Rotary in terms of wanting younger people and having that gender balance that Demetrius talked about. And again, 66% right now are not being followed up under the current system. That's 100,000 that are just lost. So under this new system, hopefully we can improve those numbers. But in order to do this, what we really need all of you to do as leaders in your districts and clubs is we need to make sure that our information is accurate. So many times when someone goes to a website for a club or for a district and they say, I'm going to go to Glenwood and I'm going to go to a meeting. And it turns out that that club no longer, of course, this isn't Glenwood. That's a bad example because they would do it right. But some clubs do not list their current location, never updated it. They don't have the right times for the meetings, and nothing's going to turn someone off more than showing up somewhere and having no one there. So we want to do that. The other thing we want to update is we want to update all our district membership chairs and really all our officers because there's going to be communication coming from Rotary International that's important that you want to know about. So make sure all the information is updated. It's worth the time. The other thing that's exciting is this new member engagement campaign. I like to call it the new member concierge. So when someone joins a club like this individual here, every couple months they're going to get an email that tells them a little bit about Rotary. Because I don't know about you, but when I joined my club, and I have a good club, they do a lot of things right, but I only learned about my club. I didn't learn that above my club was a district, and above that district was a zone. And together with another zone, we were a region, and that there's a Rotary International. And I didn't know about all the wonderful things like I can pay to be a paid observer at COL, Council on Legislation. I can pay to go see good speakers at the International Assembly. I can join the Wine Fellowship or the other fellowships and the Rotary Action Groups and ride the parade in Pasadena, the Rotary Rose Bowl Parade Float, all those kind of things. So these emails will not overwhelm, but they'll give information about the larger Rotary, and then people can get engaged. When we started talking about how important after the 3 ways this club culture is. So how do you know if you have a good club culture? We talked about some of the positive signs, but what we really need to do to find out if we have a good culture is we need to do an assessment, or what I like to call a survey. Now, if you go to Rotary.org membership, there are 7 different assessment types. You could assess them when they come in, you could assess them when they're leaving, and there's a whole bunch of different other types as well. But the most important thing is that you do a survey. Now, the research shows when you look at it outside of Rotary that the exit surveys aren't the best. And when we talk to people, what we really find out is most clubs don't do surveys. And then when they do, they usually do an exit survey. But why I'm not high and why the research isn't high on doing exit surveys is because sometimes people don't give you the real reason they're leaving. And even if they do, you don't have time to fix it. You can't correct the wrong behavior that's causing them to leave. So do it in the middle of the year or do it at the start of the year when you come in as club president. Now, why do we say you should do it once a year? Because the culture is always changing. Remember, you're doing a good job as membership folks and you're bringing people in. At the same time, you have some people leaving. Well, all that change of people changes the culture. And it doesn't have to be complicated. If you go online and one of the surveys looks too long, then just go ahead and pick the questions that you think are most important. Because the reality is, if you think about it, what's really important to the club members? Where you meet, when you meet, how you meet, how are your socials, How are your service projects? Just those five little questions can tell you a lot. Because so many clubs, they've been doing the same service project for a decade or longer. And sometimes the members are tired of doing that and they want to do something new. But how do you know what they want to do? Ask them and they'll tell you. And if you actually ask them and you actually do some of the things that they suggest, then what you're going to have is you're going to have a lot of buy-in and you're going to get a lot done. And you're going to change your club to one of being against change to one that's really truly innovative. So that's all I got to say about that.
Wonderful, Tom. So many great resources that you've shared. I have a
Absolutely.
question for you. You've talked about membership. You've shown us how to grow in membership. What really is granting you that passion to be such a vital part of growing membership? I loved what you said in that you don't have to have a speech because people are going to see it through your vibrancy. Why have you found that to be the great passion of leading the way in Rotary?
Well, thank you very much for asking that question. And I love answering questions because I feel like we're giving people what they really want to know. So thank you for the opportunity. You know, Rotary brings me so much joy. I mean, it's made me a better person. Every meeting I go to, I meet wonderful people. And I feel like I want to share that joy with other people. You know, when I was president, every time I'd bring someone in, either from my church or work or where I work out or friends, family, that seeing that extra smiling face in the crowd just made me happy. And I swear over the year, my smile got bigger and bigger and bigger because we just had more people in there to share that with.
I think that is so true. I feel the same way. Another question that our good friend Chuck's brought up was leads. Leads, I can recall being the district membership chair and looking at leads and trying to make sure that one, I got in touch with the person immediately. Number two, I told them all of the options that they had. He said that he's seen that many times people are not following up on leads. And I know that Rotary International has taken a bigger lead and part of this process. Could you give us a little bit more guidance on leads?
You know, when we visit clubs, Demetrius, in person or online, it's interesting because if you ask people how many have brought in new members, it's always just a couple people doing it. Leads are the same way, except it's worse because under the current system is it's all focused on one person in the district. So Rotary International will send a lead to that one person. Now the district governor also gets it, and the district governor, she or he can assign his right to someone else. But basically, two people out of 2,000 isn't really enough following up. So under the new system, we all will be happy because if I say I'm moving to Edina, Minnesota, they can say, okay, these are the three or four clubs in that area that you can go to. And they narrow it down even more by, size and things like that. So we have a program now that's top down. This next one will actually start from the bottom up, and we think people will be more excited. Because if you call a club president after you get them all jazzed up and all your people at the Meisters get them jazzed up, they're going to be looking for those leads much more so than international or a district. So we believe it's going to work much better.
Thank you. That's great. We definitely want to make sure we put emphasis on leads because those are prospective members that are seeking us and ready to move and action. I have one final question from my perspective. When we think about membership, and you said leading into the conversation that we're in a great place. We've seen, however, over the course of time, North America having a decline, and sometimes, of course, the door continues to evolve. What do you feel that we are going to experience for the future to get more people involved in Rotary?
Well, Demetrius, it's really up to us. One thing I've become aware of over the last year is Rotary is all of us. We go wherever you go in the world, they say, why can't Rotary do this? Why can't Rotary do that? Well, Rotary is us, and we can really make a difference if we do this. And you're right, when you look at, and this is a gross overgeneralization, but when you look at the numbers, the Northern Hemisphere is losing membership, except for a few exceptions. Southern Hemisphere is gaining, with a few exceptions. And never mention the exceptions because people get mad if you mention those. But the reality is, when you dive deep into the numbers, the Northern Hemisphere is losing clubs and not replacing them with new clubs. And they're losing clubs faster than they're adding new clubs. We only added 52 clubs last year in the United States. Now, in the Southern Hemisphere, they are adding clubs more than they're losing clubs. So we can actually be a little more, we can have a plan and go out and start new clubs, and that'll help us out a lot. So I think the future is bright. When we were children, our mother and father always had dinner parties. Now, my wife's an exception. She loves having dinner parties. But now our world seems to be, we have a lot of neighborhoods with fences around them. Instead of talking to our neighbors about issues, we write checks to our various parties and we never talk about things. People need Rotary more than ever. Less people are going to church and those kind of things. And civic organizations as a whole, it's getting harder to do that. But I just look at our polio, for example. We need people working on polio. And if the government's not going to fund that, we need to work on it and find other solutions. So I feel very happy about where we are, especially with the slowing of attrition. And I really feel this year we're going to grow because we're going to take the Demetrius approach and be intentional.
Amen. I love it. I love it. I always love seeing our friends from other countries. And Tony from New Zealand has a great question. He said, Tom, what is the current new member strategy and the communications that come from Rotary International? Are all Rotarians still getting a welcome letter from the Rotary International president?
Yes, that started a year ago, and they are getting a letter. It's interesting because Gordon McInally, when he was president, actually received a letter because he switched clubs. So he got a new. The reality is there are tweaks that need to be made, but those are still going out, and we're actually giving more strength to that because we have that concierge that says you not only get the opening letter, but every couple months for the first year, you get another letter. So thank you, Tony, and thank you for all the work you're doing to grow Rotary in Zone 8.
That's wonderful. And I want to acknowledge too that Kristen Salazar, who is part of our membership coordinators team, is on that cadre to help with new clubs. So I see some individuals who have asked questions about Rotaract clubs and creating Rotary clubs, and we definitely want to utilize her as a resource. She did a wonderful job in one of our prior webinars, and I know she'll be coming back up and talking about that. But that is an exceptional program and platform now for us.
And I'm glad you brought up Rotaract because, that's something that's really important to Rotary. Sometimes we get the question, is it worth having Rotaract from a financial standpoint? And the reality is Rotaract has come a long way since 2019. And we no longer talk about elevating Rotaract. They are a membership type. So we have Rotary members, which includes Rotaractors, and it includes Rotarians. Now, Rotaractors can do so much more now than they could used to. They could actually sit on Rotary International committees. They could actually form their own satellite club. They could apply for district and global grants. And they have applied for something like 359 in 2024 of district grants and something like 79 global grants. And Demetrius, they have given almost $400,000 in 2024. We're waiting for the 2025 numbers to the Rotary Foundation. So the thought now is if we can get interactors to go to Rotaractors that are university-based, and then eventually, after a while, get the university-based Rotaractors to go to community-based Rotaract, and then have them go into Rotary. Of course, we have to make it attractive every place they're going to. Then that would be a good flow for Rotary, and we could reach our membership goals that way.
I think that's wonderful. I would say that has been a shining light. And one of the things I'd like to do is spotlight this year those Rotaractors who have transitioned. I know a good friend of ours, Tegan. She was a RILA student, Interact, then became Rotaract, and now recently just joined a Rotary Club. And that really shows the transition and the open doors of possibilities for those who desire to make that transition. But we also want to acknowledge that we value our Rotaractors, and we're going to be doing some new innovative things within our region to ensure that we give them the voice, and they feel that they have that place, because they make a tremendous difference in the service that we do in our communities.
And you're so right by using that example because 30% of Rotaractors have been involved with RILA or a similar program earlier. So, we always hear, well, why can't we get the Rotaractors to join Rotary clubs? We need to make the Rotary clubs attracted to them. There's a few reasons why people tend not to join a Rotary club. But the good news is 3 out of the 4 of them are under the control of the club. One is too many time commitments. Well, we can make less commitments. We can go from 4 meetings a month to 2 meetings a month. Too many financial obligations. We can make club dues less for people who are under 35 if we wanted to. The only one we can't change is personal circumstances. Someone moves away because they get a job, or someone has a baby and doesn't have time now. But most of the things we can change. So let's be intentional about if we want Rotaractors to join Rotary clubs, let's make our Rotary clubs attractive.
I
We
love
could
that.
do it.
Yes, I definitely love that. Attractive, because we're going to also have a guest speaker coming up, and that is taking our public image team and making sure that people recognize all of the wonderful work that they are doing and ways that we can show the vibrancy of our clubs. I have another question that just came in the chat in the Q&A for us, and that was, with online communities and professional networks, how should Rotary compete or collaborate with digital platforms to grow membership? And I think that app is one of those great tools.
Absolutely. Demetrius, you had the answer in your opening. You said we have to engage people so many times, and there's a e-club fellowship, and there's lots of e-clubs. But the thing is, if you're an e-club, you still have to have that engagement that you have in other places. We had a club in our district that we started that they're an online club, but they meet 4 times a year. They'll go to Cuba. They just went to the Amazon rainforest. They've been to Thailand, and they go meet together and do projects together. So that's engagement. Now and they don't all have to do that. We have our end human trafficking clubs, and sometimes they could be in different areas of the world. I'll give you one example. We have the Rotary Club of Network for Empowering Women, which is a club we started a few years ago. Half are in Minnesota and half are Connecticut. What they do is they will do a project in Connecticut, they'll do a project in Minneapolis, the different groups of where they live, then they'll come together and talk about it. There's other clubs who will pick one week out of the month and say, everyone do a service project, come share it. The thing is, we have to have that engagement. Again, nobody joins Rotary to do nothing. So even e-clubs, they need to be engaged.
Absolutely. And in comment of e-clubs is allowing us to have that flexibility. And
Mhm.
that's something that Rotary has shown us how to do well over the years, that we don't have to have that traditional club. There are those that are doing service, the cosplays, and you gave us so many great examples of different types of clubs. And we just need to take an opportunity to invest in looking at those to grow, because we do need to see more new clubs. All right. Well, we want to say thank you to all of those members who have joined in tonight and our guests from around the world. And it is important to continue to stay committed to our webinar series. Thank you, Tom, for all of the work that you do. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.